started with a small research project that I conducted, which was sponsored by the Office of Research of the university. I do a collecting project. I collect materials pertaining to Cebu. It occurred to me that there was a need to build up a Cebuano collection in the library. So I approached Father Gertz, who was the director of research, and I suggested to him that I do a project like this. So it was kind of a small collecting project. So that was, I think, what started the whole thing, because I was able to build up a sizable collection of Cebuano materials. I think I should mention also at the beginning that the ones who played an important role at the beginning also, because they were the ones who physically set up the center. So they were actually the ones who moved Cebuano materials from the main library, the Filipiniana Library, and brought it to kind of a new location, where the Filipiniana librarian at the time, si Fe Susan Go, Erlinda Alburo, for instance, and she started as a research associate of the center. And then the other one who has been an important figure in the center is Michael Collinay.
Since the center was established in 1975 by the first director, Resil B. Mojares, who is also our national artist for literature, the center has already engaged in a lot of discussions on culture. And because of this, what we have at the center is to organize meetings with different scholars, get them into discussions. So we have workshops, we have seminars, we have research conferences, and then we also do lectures. So it's a lot of things here, but the work culture is mostly to engage in innovative thinking, in pushing the frontiers of Cebuano culture and have it interact with the rest of the Philippines and also the rest of the world where we can connect.
The primary focus was really on literature and history. And the way I conceived of the center was that it has a dual character. First, it's a special library, and second is that it was going to be a research center. Although, in a sense, you can say that the basic function is that it's a library.
The Cebuano Studies Center used to be at the downtown campus, what was once called the main campus. It used to be in first just below where you have a statue right now of San Carlos. My first encounter with the Cebuano Studies Center were the conferences that were held, the folklore conferences. The folklore conference held at the Buttenbrook, which used to be called Audiovisual Center, and you just cross Buttenbrook, there would be a set of staircases going down to the basement of the Archbishop Reyes building.
I was advising a group of 3 graduate students. They were all working on Cebuano literature, which was, in a sense, you have to remember that at the time, early 70s, that was the beginning of a period when there was a great deal of interest in local studies. That was, in a sense, an exciting time because you can actually say that that was the beginning of what was in effect a movement, because although not a formal movement, but there was in the University of the Philippines, other universities, a great deal of interest in undertaking local studies. So that's the general context, and in a sense, the excitement was it was actually part of a much broader movement.
I work in this industry because I believe that it is a respectful acknowledgement to our forebears And also, it's work done for the future generations of Cebuanos and Filipinos. There are two best new changes going on in the Cebuano Studies Center. The first is the translation works. Although this is not something new, but the Cebuano Studies Center is doing more and more translation works, and every new publication is an invaluable addition to the field of Cebuano studies. The second one would be the digitization projects of the Cebuano Studies Center, where we are digitizing our old and rare collections for preservation.
In 2008, the center was able to get a grant from the provincial government, and this funded the provincial town history, which actually puts together the local town histories of the 55 different towns and municipalities here in Cebu.
Preserving Cebuano culture is important because in this era and age of globalization, everything is becoming uniform, templated, standardized. But the problems of the world are not standardized, are not templated. Solutions can be found in different cultures. The Cebuano culture is the product of a long evolution and is part of Philippine society, but it has its own uniqueness within that society. It can contribute to development, to progress, and because there are people who make up that culture, and because there are people who make up that culture, and it has to be preserved. Now, what is culture? The main expressions of culture are language, and Cebuano is a language in itself.
Well, the Cebuano Studies Center first is an archive. It started as an archive, so it collects everything on Cebuano culture, Cebuano studies, Cebuano news. Everything Cebuano is supposed to be archived at the center.
That's one unique aspect about the Cebuano Studies Center. It has a very copious archive. I don't think you'll be able to find another research center like it here in the province. And whichever researcher wants to do research on Cebu, I think it is an eventuality that they would come to our archives here and do research.
The Cebuano Studies' greatest strength is its special collection. We have a vast collection of old photographs, old newspapers, periodicals, magazines, and original manuscripts and memorabilia of our local writers.
And we also have the compilation of Cebuano music with transcription and analysis with the National Research Council of the Philippines. And this aim to document extant Cebuano songs and transcribe the songs and put notations.
The photo collection of the Cebuano Studies Center is pioneer. Early on in the 1970s, when you have fires, when you have termites eating all these photo albums in houses, Cebuano Studies Center was already starting to collect. Imagine if that collection of photographs of old books was not carried out in the 1970s, 1974, 1973. We would have been poorer intellectually as a people, as Cebuanos. We would be intellectually poorer for it. And so without the Cebuano Studies Center, I don't think you can really even write anything about Cebu.
We often link with other departments like the Department of Communications, Languages, and Literature, and we encourage the students to do work on Cebuano literature, and our history department, where we encourage the students, both undergraduate and graduate, to do their thesis and research on local history. So in this way, we are able to generate new knowledge, new researches, and at the same time be of help to the students.
Yeah, so I think the direction of Cebuano literature will veer in the direction of Cebuano writing, basically. We'll probably see more kids writing in Cebuano, reading in Cebuano, and using the language in ways that are new and innovative.
I would like to see the center as being able to make stronger connections with other research centers, especially in the Philippines, because The Cebuano Studies Center is the mother of all research centers. And I would like to see discussions among the research centers to look at the state of where we are now as research centers, to take a look at that and see where we are going. At the same time, I would like to see the center produce more books in translation, especially the Cebuano classics, and disseminated widely, I mean all over the world. That's why we're engaged in translation studies. And stronger connections, I mean research clusters that will have ongoing work for a long, long time.
The future is very bright for Cebuano Studies, as long as there will be people who will continue to do research and understand where Cebu is heading by looking at where it was in the past and where it is in the present. And in that, you find everything in the Cebuano Studies Center.
The thing is, I think there's really a need for a stock-taking to revisit exactly what was the promise behind local studies, and to what extent have we delivered on that promise. You know? So I think that's the key question that has to be addressed. So as I mentioned on one occasion, I said the need at present in local studies is that you need to re-energize it by recalling what its original promise was and to what extent has that promise been fulfilled.